viewers, I'm your host Uzma Jafri with another episode of South Asia Focus. Let's begin the show. The World Trade Organization, after working overtime, giving 5 grueling days in this year's ministerial conference, finally came to the consensus on nearly all issues that were on the table. The key issues ranged from food security to fisheries. India, which is a major player in these sectors and had its own sets of reservations before the talks, has also nodded in favor of the larger interest of the global community. The ministerial conference of the World Trade Organization that was held after the long 5-year hiatus turned out to be productive, as most of the agendas that were on the table for this year finally passed the consensus. The 164 body members approved a series of trade agreements this week. The agreements primarily included commitments on fish and pledges on health and food security. The deals were ground out over 5 days of bargaining at a conference of more than 100 trade ministers that was seen as a test of the ability of nations to strike multilateral trade deals. Content with the achievements of the year's developments, the Director General said the agreements that were signed were set to bring a difference to the lives of people around the world. She also praised the capabilities of the WTO to move together in order to bring change in the world. At one stage, a series of demands from India, which has been championing the rights of poor farmers and fishermen as well as developing countries, expressed its reservations. However, with minor tweaks that were accommodated by the group, India also came to consensus with the rest.
भारत अपने किसानों के लिए, अपने खाद्य सुरक्षा के लिए, गरीबों के लिए पूरी तरीके से तत्पर है, पूरी तरीके से यहाँ पे संघर्ष कर रहा है और मैं आपके माध्यम से सबको विश्वास दिलाना चाहूँगा कि भारत के लिए जो प्राथमिकता है वो है कि हमारे गरीबों को, हमारे किसानों को किसी भी प्रकार की ठेस ना पहुंचे। इसी के साथ साथ मछुआरों के लिए भी भारत ने अपनी बात अलग-अलग बैठकों में रखी।
The WTO's rules dictate that all decisions are taken by consensus, with any single member able to exercise a veto. The deal on a partial IP waiver to allow developing countries to produce and export COVID-19 vaccines has divided the WTO for nearly 2 years, but finally passed. India, South Africa and a group of other countries have long been demanding for the waiver of the patents of vaccines in wake of the disastrous COVID pandemic. Millions of people in the poorest of the countries continue to be at the risk of fatal COVID owing to non-availability of vaccines.
भारत का पक्ष बहुत संवेदनशील पक्ष है। भारत की बात बहुत फेयर है, इक्विटेबल है, विश्व के हित में है और मैं समझता हूं कि आज पूरे विश्व ने ये स्वीकार किया है कि विश्व में और ज़्यादा लोगों को समृद्धि पहुंचनी चाहिए। सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट गोल्स जो विश्व ने एडॉप्ट किए थे, जो 2030 का जो SDG एजेंडा, उसमें भी इस बात को रखा गया है कि हर गरीब का अधिकार है कि उसका भी जीवन अच्छा हो, प्रॉस्परस हो और मैं समझता हूँ भारत उन फंडामेंटल प्रिंसिपल्स पे अपनी बात आधारित करता है तो स्वाभाविक रूप से हमारी बात को वजन है और ये वजन WTO में भी देखने को मिलते हैं।
Indian negotiators appeared satisfied after the country's interests remained protected in the face of a belligerent stand taken by developed nations. Refusing to divulge the details of what all could find births in the final document, Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal said this could be one of the most successful ministerials the WTO has seen for a long time. In the backdrop of several foreign media reports terming India as a tumbling block at the WTO, Goyal said India had played a very constructive role in the ministerial. Goyal said India had been at the forefront of finding solutions to the issues that are dividing the world. One agreement had also been reached on Thursday on maintaining a moratorium on e-commerce tariffs, which is considered vital to allow the free flow of data worldwide. Many observers were broadly supportive and said the deals should boost the WTO, which was weakened by former US President Donald Trump's crippling of its ability to intervene in trade disputes and set it on a course for reform.
Moving on, the worst fear is coming true for the island nation Sri Lanka. The citizens who are battered by the ripple effects of the economic crisis the country is reeling under are planning on leaving their homes for places where they feel they can provide for their families. Sri Lanka's passport issuing authorities are overwhelmed by the number of applications they are receiving every day. And this adds to the woes of the government that has already been facing massive protests amidst a free-falling economy and evaporating forex reserves.
Sri Lanka's Department of Immigration and Emigration is under tremendous work pressure as it is receiving unprecedented new passport applications every day. Hundreds of people have gathered before the collection counters, hoping they will soon be able to fly out of the South Asian island nation that has been battered by the economic crisis. The officials say they have not witnessed this scale of demand in their entire careers, and they are finding it hard to manage the current crowd even after working on weekends.
මේ අධික තදබදය නිසා සාමාන්‍ය සේවා ගමන් බලපත්‍රයක් නිකුත් කිරීමට අපිට සාමාන්‍ය මාසක විතර කාලයක් ගත වෙනවා. එතකොට බැක්ලොග් එකේ තරම් දිග වෙලා තියෙනවා. ඔව් විශාල බැක්ලොග් එකක් තිබුණත් අපේ නිලධාරීන් සෙනසුරාදා දිනවලදී රාජකාරී කරමින් තමයි ඒ තත්ත්වය කළමනාකරණය කරගනිමින් තිබෙන්නේ.
It takes nearly a month in Sri Lanka to get your passport procedure done. However, in these desperate times, when the application stacks are only growing with the day, both the authorities and the applicants are uncertain of the dates as to when they will receive their document. According to government data, in the first 5 months of 2022, Sri Lanka has issued over 288,000 passports compared with a little over 91,000 in the same period last year. The situation is gradually turning into chaos and people are not able to get the process initiation even after standing in queues for days.
දැන් දවස් 3ක් පෙරේදා මම මෙහෙනේ ටින්කෝ අපි ටින්කෝ ඉඳලා ආවේ පෙරේදා හවස 4ට ඉහින් ආවේ. තාම ඉතින් මේ පොලිමේ තාම පාස්පෝර්ට් එකට ෆෝම් ටික බාර දෙන්න බැරි වුණා.
Hundreds of Sri Lankan citizens have already left the country in search of greener pastures, with their prime destinations being India, the Middle East and Australia. Many of them are willing to do even menial jobs in other countries, for they believe that they cannot provide for their families if they continue to stay in Sri Lanka. The island nation of 22 million people is running short of food, cooking gas, fuel and medicine after economic mismanagement and the COVID-19 pandemic wiped out its foreign exchange reserves. Currency depreciation, inflation of more than 33%, and worries of prolonged political and economic uncertainty are other reasons pushing many to migrate. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and his ministers have time and again tried to assuage the angry protesters, saying the situation will calm down in coming days. However, neither have they been able to keep up their promises, nor have the citizens shown any trust in the country's leadership. The IMF and other international bodies' support is not reaching the country anytime soon, and people know this. And even if it does, it just won't be enough to prevent their life and livelihood plunging into a crisis that won't be over in immediate future to follow in Sri Lanka.
Moving on. The Taliban, which now claim to have resolved all security issues in the country, attended the low-level Russian Davos at St. Petersburg last week and appealed for tech and skill support from any and every country who wanted to assist it. The Taliban-run government representative also urged the world to focus and assist it with food and grain support in line with the massive food shortage that has posed the risk of famine in the country. As per different estimates, nearly 60% of the country's population stands on the cusp of acute hunger.
Mohammad Yunus Momand was the center of attention in Russia's Davos summit this year, following a weak international participation following the West's snub to Russia. However, it also turned out to be a great opportunity for the Afghanistan minister to use the platform to put forth his country's genuine interests and issues before the world. And despite Russia facing an increasing ostracization from the world, Afghanistan maintained that it wanted to deepen relations with Moscow, which has proven to be a reliable partner in the past too.
افغانستان تاسو ته معلومه ده چې د روسیې سره ډېرې اوږدې تجارتي اقتصادي اجتماعي اړیکې لري. کوشش مو دا دی چې زموږ تجارت د ټولې دنیا سره خصوصا روسیه چې زموږ سره اوږدې اړیکې لري غواړو خپل تجارت ته نور هم ادامه ورکړو او له سره څخه بیا په هغه ځای کې چې مشکلات باید نه وي زموږ او د روسیې در مابین باید یو ډېر پراخ تجارت وجود ولري. افغانستان په اوس وخت کې غنمو ته اوړو ته د تیلو ته غازو ته او د خوړو ته ضرورت لري یا تیلو ته ضرورت لري. په دې وخت کې د افغانستان ضرورت دی. موږ غواړو چې په اول ټیم دا ځینې دا د روسیې څخه صادرات کوو. بیا
Taliban-led government of Afghanistan calls itself a truly independent and sovereign country now, which wants to have better ties with countries across the world. However, it is also a fact that the humanitarian situation, which wasn't great even during the previous West-backed government, has deteriorated further since last August when the group swept to power. The country is in the middle of some of the worst economic crisis, with the US not willing to release all the Afghan funds it freezed, citing the Al-Qaeda threats that might pop up if Taliban were handed that huge of an amount. Situation is such that Kabul doesn't have cash to even pay for the salaries or buy food. Western aid has been suspended because the Taliban government includes designated terrorists. And millions of Afghans face acute malnutrition and starvation in the coming months. India has pledged 50,000 metric tons of wheat to the country and has sent over half of it. But that has covered just one aspect of the plethora of problems that Afghans face. And now the Taliban asserted in Russia that it didn't want to depend on others for its future, hence requested the countries to assist it with technological advancements and with the skill sets, and not with outright aids.
د یو افغان په صفت خواهش مو دی د ټولې دنیا څخه چې افغانانو ته د مایانو نیول زده کړي. په زیربنایي پروژو کې زموږ سره کومک وکړي. نه زموږ سره کومک وکړي. موږ ضرورت لرو چې موږ ته مایع رانه کې موږ ته د مایع نیول را زده کړي. موږ غواړو چې افغانستان د کار د لارې پر مخ لاړ شي، د کاروبار د لارې پر مخ لاړ. نه غواړو چې افغانستان پر جامعه جهاني باندې بار شي. افغانستان باید په خپله باید خپل قوت پیدا کړي.
Experts, however, say that the Taliban would require to change its method of operations if it wants to build any form of credibility within the international community. Primary point being the equal treatment of women who are being treated as second-class citizens under the Taliban regime, with all their freedoms snatched away under current dispensation. The international community has been reluctant as it believes that Taliban are really close to what they were during the previous regime of 1996 to 2001. And any financial push might prove to be counterproductive instead of bringing favorable results of peace and prosperity.
Time now for Asia This Week. Stories from across the continent.
At least 2 people were killed and 7 injured in Turkish airstrikes targeting the Sinjar resistance units, a militia affiliated with the Kurdistan Workers' Party in Iraq's northern province of Sinjar. They said one strike targeted an intelligence headquarters and another hit a civilian area, causing damage to nearby shops. Videos on social media showed plumes of thick smoke and fires ablaze while people ran away in the street. There has been a long-running Turkish campaign in Iraq and Syria against militants of the PKK and the Syrian Kurdish YPG militia, which are both regarded as terrorist groups by Ankara. Turkey regularly carries out strikes in northern Iraq and has sent commandos to support its offensives. An Israeli court this week convicted a Palestinian aid worker who has been detained for 6 years on Israeli charges that he funneled tens of millions of dollars in relief funds to the militant group Hamas. The Beersheba District Court found El-Halabi guilty of supporting a terror organization but acquitted him of treason. They set a sentencing hearing for July. Mohammad El-Halabi, head of Gaza operations for World Vision, an international Christian non-governmental organization, was arrested in June 2016. Israel accused him of siphoning off up to $50 million to pay Hamas fighters, buy arms and fund the group's activities. El-Halabi has consistently denied the charges against him and has refused several plea deal offers. Japanese company Casio's scientific calculators are used by children at a school in Indonesia's capital Jakarta for solving difficult math problems. Casio is contributing in different ways to improve education in countries around the world with its Gakuhan project, wherein scientific calculators are being provided to teachers and students in schools.
2016年からこの学班活動を本格的に推進しておりまして、これまでですね、教師の方々を中心に関数電卓を活用したトレーニングですとか、探究型数学授業の定着化を図ってまいりました。現在、今、ジャカルタ州を中心にエドポート日本プロジェクトを推進しているという状況でございます。
Casio has collaborated with the Japanese education project EduPort Nippon for supporting talented students in Indonesia. Casio's pilot classes are highly evaluated in Indonesian education. Casio is providing scientific calculators to educational sites around the world to help teachers in developing leaders and fulfilling dreams of a number of children. Companies in Japan are introducing FameTech or female technology. This initiative is undertaken by the Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry in Japan. Under it, attention is being paid to the health of female employees and not just on superficial beauty. The restrictions caused by the coronavirus pandemic have brought new changes in the beauty industry. People wear masks to cover their mouth. This prompted the beauty industry to come up with alternate methods to enhance facial appearance.
の前まではやっぱりメイドインジャパンのブランドの信頼というのがすごく高いなというふうに感じておりまして、海外からの注目度はすごく高くて、今年は来場者が海外から来られないというのがあるんですけれども、そのメイドインジャパンというブランドはまだ存在しているかなと思っております。美容に関する商材を作られているメーカーさんとか商社さん、それを取り扱うサロンの方とか小売りの方と出会う場所になっておりますので、コロナが明けて今年非常に多くの来場者の方に来ていただいてますので、またこれがそのビジネスの拡大とか活性化につながっていくといいなと思っています。
FameTech, the technology of the beauty industry in Japan, will once again attract the attention of the world with beauty appliances.
Moving on. India is a land of all faiths, and the country's constitutional framework provides freedom to all to propagate their beliefs. In line with the same, the government has time and again deepened its ties with other countries on the basis of beliefs. Mongolia, a Buddhist-dominant nation, recently got an opportunity to showcase 4 relics of Lord Buddha that were transported to the country by a senior Indian minister and a large delegation.
A large number of people gathered in Mongolian capital Ulaanbaatar and received Lord Buddha's relics with great reverence. The relics were flown from Indian city of Kapilvastu and were displayed in the Gandhan monastery of the capital for 11 days. Prayers were offered as monks chanted religious chants before Indian Law and Justice Minister Kiran Rijiju took away the 4 holy relics, Kapilvastu relics, to Mongolia for an 11-day exhibition.
This is a very, very special gesture from the Government of India, and the relics which I have carried along with me, the Kapilvastu relics. Kapilvastu relics are very, very special relics, and 4 relics are being brought here.
India and Mongolia have interacted through the medium of Buddhism over a period of 2600 years. Following the emergence of Mongolia as a modern nation-state in the 20th century, the two countries have continued to build relations based on shared historical and cultural legacy. Speaker of Mongolian Parliament expressed gratitude to the Indian government for showcasing the relics to his people who could otherwise have remained deprived of such display.
I would like to express our sincerest and heartfelt gratitude to Government of India for bringing Buddha relics to Mongolia. So it's on behalf of Parliament of Mongolia, on behalf of devotees, Buddhist community of Mongolia, I would like to thank to the Government of India for this auspicious day.
The Indian-Mongolian Cultural Agreement, signed in 1961, has governed the cultural exchange program between the two countries. A large number of Indian literary work, including Panchtantra, Ramayana, Shakuntala, Ritu Samara, Kama Sutra, Godan, Gaban, and Kati Patang have been published in Mongolian language, as also major Buddhist scriptures of Indian origin.
Observers believe that such events will further enhance the cooperation between two sides in coming times. With that, we come to the end of this week's episode. See you next week. Goodbye and take care.